Hey guys, this is Prowl1701, and today we're continuing our ranking of the Skywalker Saga, and we're at number 6. If you've been following the channel, then you know, or following this ranking list, you know that the sequel trilogy took up spots 9, 8, and 7. So at least number 6 can't be a sequel trilogy movie. Actually, number 6 is going to be Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. Now, of the original 6 movies, again, that's why this one's at number 6, I do think it's my least favorite, but I do want to point out that I like this movie. This movie just has certain parts in it where I'm like, fast forward button. Yes, fast forward button. This includes any romantic scene with Anakin and Padme because, dear Lord, if I had to watch it without a fast forward button, I'd be like, I can just get a rope over that fan right there, and because it seems like that would be the better way out than having to endure that. Good Lord, the romantic scenes between those two. And I don't think it's so much the actors, because Natalie Portman's a good actress. Hayden Christensen, I don't know, because he does a pretty good job acting in episode 3. I don't know if he just learned more in that time, or if just the... or if it's solely the fact the dialogue is just so awful. That's the worst thing I can say about the prequels. The dialogue is just so awful in so many places, and their romantic dialogue is awful. It's bad. It is cringeworthy. So, yeah, that's right now one of the reasons this movie's lower down on the list. Bad. Some of the things I like about the movie. Ewan McGregor is always great as Obi-Wan Kenobi. In all 3 movies, I just like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. That was great casting. CGI Yoda. This was the first movie where we got CGI Yoda. Excuse me. And I really liked what they did with CGI Yoda. I really like Yoda's fight scene at the end of the movie with Dooku. I know some people don't like that because they're like, he wouldn't use a lightsaber. And I'm like, Jedi consulars use white lightsabers. Why not? So I really like his style, too, to where he's moving around. He's using his small size to his advantage because he's moving around so much he's harder to hit. I really like his fighting style. And I enjoy that fight scene. But I will point out I did not like the fight scene between Dooku and Obi-Wan and then Dooku and Anakin. Because Dooku and Obi-Wan, that one was over way too fast. I mean, Obi-Wan's the guy who took out Darth Maul, more or less. And then ended up taking him out later. So I would have expected Obi-Wan to put up a fight. Much like Dooku says, I was disappointed. I expected more. That fight's too short. Although I do love the fact you get Dooku as toying with him, which tells you just how much better Dooku is with a lightsaber than Maul was with a lightsaber. Because, you know, Obi-Wan's with her. And then you just see Christopher Lee, and he's just like, and then he cuts him. And the Anakin... Dooku fight, I didn't care much for either. It's pretty cool for a second when he has the 2 sabers and he's spinning around, but most of it is just close-ups of their face, which, don't get me wrong, I get part of that was they probably had to work around the fact, you know, Christopher Lee's 80, so they probably had a stunt double in there doing a lot of the scenes and having to put his face on, and CGI technology wasn't as advanced as it is now. I get that. But because of that, since a lot of it's just close-ups of their face when they're doing this, it was a little lacking there on the lightsaber fights. A lot of good in this movie, though. A lot of nice mystery intrigue. Good introduction to Jango Fett. Don't really care much for Jango Fett, but nice introduction to him. The actor playing him does a good job. He also does a good job with the clones in this movie and in 3. Most of the actors themselves do a pretty good job. A lot of it, I think, is more down to the writing. I do think the overuse of CGI on locations has not aged well. A lot of the backgrounds in this movie, you know, the senators were in pretty much all the locations look like they're CGI. That hasn't aged well because there's no texture to them. They just look flat and soulless and lifeless. And the fact this movie was filmed in 2K digital cameras instead of film hurts this movie in the long run. Because while episode 1 is shot on film and can be remastered in true 4K, episodes 2 and 3 cannot. And while it doesn't hurt 3 as much in my eyes, it does hurt 2 because of the more limited technology there. Different types of cameras in those 2 movies. And I think it's really hard trying to watch the upscale, because it is an upscale to 4K on episode 2, and I think the over reliance on computers and CGI hurt that movie in the long run. I like the fact there's not much Jar Jar Binks in it. I think it's hilarious that Jar Jar Binks is the one that gives the pimper. I want to see a spoof of that now. The pimper. That gives Palpatine the emergency powers. He's the one that's like, let's give him emergency powers. And I'm like, oh, it would be Jar Jar Binks. But at least he's not in the movie much. I do like the scene when Obi-Wan and Jango Fett are squaring off on Kamino. I like Kamino. I think Kamino was realized really well with just all the rain and everything. I do wonder if there's any planet in the Star Wars universe that has more than one ecosystem, though. You ever notice that? We have the desert planet, we have the forest moon, the other kind of forest moon, we have the water planet. Is there any planet in Star Wars that has more than one ecosystem? Just curious. But I do like that planet. I like the Kamino people. I actually think the digital computer work on them looks really good and holds up really well. A lot of thought went into that, I think. I like how they came up with the idea of the clone army and how you can see Palpatine behind the scenes pulling all the threads, arranging this. How Palpatine, if you look at it, is the one that puts Anakin and Padme together, which further helps make him unstable. Because he's the one who suggests that she be placed in the care of the Jedi, and then suggest, like an old friend, like Master Kenobi. Clever guy, Palpatine. So he's slowly pushing them together. Some of the acting's really good. Hayden Christensen does really good. Christensen does really good in that scene where his mother's dying, when he's with her and she's taking her last few breaths and she dies, and you just see him get angry, that rage on his face. That's actually really well done, that whole scene. And then when you see him walk out and he just starts cutting into him, really well done. Gives us a nice view of how this is a guy who is trying to control his emotions. But he's never really been taught to control them. He's been taught to repress them, but he's never really been taught to deal with them emotionally. So you have someone who's 19 and 20, right at that age where they're old enough to think they're grown, but they're not. Because trust me, ask people in our mid to late 30s or older, you people who are in your 19 or 20s, you're not as smart as you think you are most of the time. Because I know, when I was 18, I thought I knew everything. 10 years later, I was amazed at how much I had learned since then. But, so he's having to deal with all these emotions that he's not used to having to deal with, and these are kind of tipping him. He's kind of hitting these dark side moments. You can hear Qui-Gon saying that, Anakin, no! Which was a nice little moment, hearing Qui-Gon say that. I wish they directly referenced it instead of just hearing it. But it's nice that we hear that. Natalie Portman does a good job. Palpatine, what little bit he's in it, his key scenes, he does a good job. Christopher Lee is in this movie. Bonus points right there. This movie beats out the sequels on that alone. Christopher Lee is in this movie, and I love Christopher Lee. I mean, this is a guy who's played Dracula like a dozen times. He was great as Saruman. He was in one of the second Howling, if I remember correctly. He's good, whether he's playing a good guy, whether he's playing a bad guy. He was the man with the golden gun. Christopher Lee is an icon and a legend. And just the fact that he is in 2 Star Wars movies, that's amazing to me. At the same time when he was doing his Lord of the Rings stuff. It's just fantastic. And he's great in it when he's in it. Mace Windu is great in this movie. It's nice to see Samuel L. Jackson really able to cut loose. Because in episode 1, he really just kind of talks. And doesn't get to do much, but one, I love his purple lightsaber. It's nice to see a Jedi with a lightsaber that's not blue or green. And I know that was Samuel L. Jackson's idea to have a purple one. I like that. Speaking of which, the whole scene at the end, the battle scene with the Jedi, that's nice. It's nice to see the Jedi in their prime throwing down. I enjoyed that. That whole scene where the Jedi show up and they're helping fight all the battle droids on Geonosis. That whole scene is just great. I love that scene. Watching, and you see how few of them are left right before the clone troops show up. That really did hurt their numbers pretty hard. And then the clone troops show up, and that whole battle scene's pretty neat. But I really did enjoy Mace Windu in that movie, and getting to see like Plo Koon and what's it, Kaya Mundi, whatever his name is. Seeing them in action. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And there was something else I wanted to mention, and it's slipping my head at the moment. But episode 2 is it's a flawed movie. But it's still a good movie to watch. It might be the worst of the prequels, but it's still a good Star Wars movie, and it still is a Star Wars movie, and it still feels like the middle part of a story. You know, it fits with what came before it, and it fits into what came after it really well. The prequel trilogy is still telling a concise story. I still feel like it is the middle of a great story. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it that I can come up with right off the top of my head at the moment. It's a good movie. It has its flaws. Also, I really hate that Padawan haircut. Didn't look so bad on Ewan McGregor in episode 1. Looks goofy on Anakin in episode 2. I was so glad he grew his hair out in episode 3 because that Padawan haircut just looks garbage. Anyway, check out my other channel, Another Sci-Fi Guy, where I review other sci-fi related content like Doctor Who, Star Trek, Babylon 5. Might get some Battlestar Galactica stuff on there soon. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I plan on doing a list on there where I rank Star Trek movies soon. And most importantly, thank you for watching.